I'm going to be tying up some more egg flies in this video, kind of a companion to the one I did last week. That was just about tying real basic egg flies. What I want to cover today is how to tie what's called a veiled egg. A veiled egg is basically an egg fly that has some white yarn draped over it, kind of puts a veil on it. Now, a lot of people also refer to these as Nuke eggs. So I'm going to show you how to just take a regular basic egg like this and just put a veil on it, and then it's just basically the same process for making what's called a Nuke egg. The interesting thing is this particular one is a guides fly, and I'll talk more about that in the video, but it's tied a little bit different, but as you will see, it's a very, very quick fly to tie, but it still looks great, just like a regular old egg in the water, and this one with a veil on it. So that is a Nuke egg, or a veiled egg. I'll get started tying. This is going to be the second part of some videos that I've done on tying basic egg flies. Previous one, I just showed some different techniques for getting just some really basic eggs. What I want to show you today is how to tie what's called a veiled egg. Some people also call it a Nuke egg, and there's different ways that you can do that. And then I'm also going to show you a version of the Nuke egg that was tied by a guide friend of mine many years ago. He showed me and talked just for a little bit about the difference between regular commercial flies, or even the things that many of us tie at our vise, and then what guides tie. So this is a Tiemco 105 in a size 4. It's a nice heavy shanked hook. And for thread, I'm using a GSP. This is a UTC GSP in 100 Denier. Because of the fact that it has a veil on it, which is going to be white, I can go with the white thread if you want it all to match. You could still, even with the basic eggs, you could use a GSP thread if you want. It's a very narrow diameter, and it's very, very strong. You can really crank on it to compact that egg. Now, I'm also going to use, last week I used some Wapsi egg yarn, and then I also used a product called Glowbug. Everybody has their different favorites and everything. Today I'm going to be using a product called McFly foam. This is just some nice salmon pink McFly foam. I'm going to take my first piece and tie this on here. I'm going to get 4 or 5 wraps to secure that. And then I'm going to bring this around to the underside of the hook. Now, what I'm showing you here is also another variation for just tying a basic egg hook. So if you are tying some egg hooks and you like this particular method, then by all means, you can certainly do that. I am going to use 2 bits of McFly foam here on the top. But I'm also going to put, this is just a thin piece of Wapsi egg yarn, and I'm putting this in so this will look kind of like the yolk of an egg. And I mentioned that, I think I demonstrated in the video last week, that you can do this really easy to give your fly kind of a yolk spot. So I have those 2 pieces side by side and the yolk yarn right on top. I'm going to bring that around, tighten that up, get this bottom McFly foam kind of out of the way, and then crank down on that and put in about another half dozen wraps. And then spreading that apart, I'm going to bring, you don't want to pull too hard. As you can see, I just kind of torqued all of that over to one side. So that means I need to get a few more nice tight wraps in the middle here. Then I'm going to fold the top back, bringing this under, fold the bottom back. Now I'll get a few wraps right in front here. Leave your thread hanging. This is going to be, like I said, a nuke egg. So what I'm looking to do here is to go ahead and cut this yarn off to make the egg. And then I'll put the veil on it. Actually, I think this is more of kind of your basic veiled egg. But like I said, this is also a way to do an egg pattern if you want a nice full egg. I'm going to cut, pulling these up, I'm going to cut maybe about the gap of the hook away from the shank here. You want to make certain you can cut right straight through that. Flipping this over, I think I had a short piece in there. I'm going to try and trim that out. Yeah, I had a little short piece I didn't collect. Now I'm going to take the ones on the bottom, stretch those out. This McFly foam has a lot of stretch into it. And run right about the top of the hook there, the gap of the hook. I'm going to cut that. I should cut it right across. My scissors aren't apparently as sharp as they should be. But as you can see, you get a nice full egg that's nice and round. There's no thread showing or anything like that. Pulling that back just a little bit, I'm going to wrap my thread on there. Now I'm going to put the veil on. The veils are always simple. This is a little bit of white Wapsi yarn. They actually sell this as like a veil yarn. I think McFly foam and Glowbug also have their own take on it. It's just a white version, so even if you have, you know, a white yarn, you can just kind of pull it apart. I generally will take about half of this strand, and then I'm going to spread that apart just a little bit. I'm going to put it over the eye of the hook like this. Get a wrap to collect that down to the hook shank. Bring my thread up. I want to keep that down. My thread up, and then I'm going to scoop that right on the underside, and then I'll wrap backwards a little bit, trapping that on the underside. And that's really about it when it comes to doing veiled eggs. You can do these with more veil on them or less. I tend to go with a little bit less. I don't want the hook all covered up in white. I mean the egg, I should say, all covered up in white. So then you can just take a little toothbrush or, you know, a dubbing brush or something like that, and brush that out. Might go with a little bit more veil than that. On the next one, we'll do a little bit more. But as you can see, that is just a basic little egg with a veil on it. Now the veil, the idea is that the veil right here kind of represents the salmon sperm. So the females will discharge their eggs and the males will put their milk into the water, and it attacks these eggs, or I shouldn't say attacks, but I mean it attaches itself to the eggs, and a whole bunch of it is all on the outside, even though only one's getting through to fertilize. But so they tumble down and they've got all of this hanging off of them. Little head cement on this, and this is done. So that is a veiled egg. You can also do this in multiple different colors, multiple different veils you want. Really, really simple and easy. I was taught a long time ago to do a nuke egg, but to do it a little bit different. So I was taught a number of years ago how to tie a nuke egg by a friend of mine up in Michigan who's a guide. And the nuke egg per se, as far as my understanding, did originate up in Michigan, but it certainly has spread to more corners than that. Anyway, it's a very, very straightforward, simple fly, and the way he showed me how to tie it is very, very quick and easy. I'm going to show you here real quick. how to tie it, and then I'll explain a little bit about that as I tie up another one, and you can see just how quick and easy this is to tie. So I'm going to attach my thread. I'm going to actually get my thread back just a little bit past the point of the hook, not in the center right there. I'm going to use some chartreuse McFly foam for this. I'm just going to cut maybe about a 4-inch section, 3-inch section here, something like that. And I'm going to use maybe about 2/3 of this, so I'm just going to split that off. The idea is that you're going to tie this in here, get that tied in real tight right there, fold this back, bring your thread forward a little bit. This is where we're going to tie in a veil. The egg is simply pulled back this way and cut straight up or even at a little bit of an angle in the back, just like that. And then we're going to take our veil I'm going to use just a little bit more than I did last time. And we're going to put the veil on just like we did. Pulling that back, wrap that in right there. You want to try and make certain that this is staying down towards the bottom. Fold this back. And then tie that off. Wrap that off. So this is actually not right up behind the eye of the hook. You could certainly tie it that way if you want. It is more down the hook shank a little bit. Trim away your thread. GSP really needs some nice sharp scissors. I'm going to probably change my scissors here. And we'll use our toothbrush to get some of this veil back here. Spread this out a little bit. And the veil, you can make it long, you can make it short, you can have it just cover the egg a little bit if you want. I'm going to use a dubbing brush here. This is going to comb that out just a little bit better. And certainly you don't have to go to all this trouble simply because it's going to kind of ebb and flow and do its own thing in the water. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what you're looking for. And I can leave that long if I want to, or I can go ahead and cut that and even cut that a little bit different length so I have a few trailing in the back. But as you can see, with this one here, I didn't go for the round ball look to it, but at the same time, I still ended up with a nice representation of an egg. As that is drifting down in the water, this is about what it's going to look like. And that is going to look every bit like an egg, for the most part, as this will. So it's a much quicker way of tying a nuke egg. Now the reason that they tie this way is, think about it, if you're a guide, you may end up at the end of the day losing a bunch of egg flies. You got to go home that night and tie up a bunch for your next outing. Matter of fact, the guys I was fishing with years ago up there, we had a new guy that was on the trip that, through no fault of his own, but he lost like 20 nuke eggs that day. And you'll lose them in the rocks and things like this, but he was mostly losing them in the trees, which he didn't even really need to be casting. And so the guides have to go home and tie up 20 of these that night. Well, if it's going to take you, let's just say, however you do an egg, a nice egg, if it's going to take you 4 minutes times 20, that's a little bit of time. So A lot of times guides will turn around and find shortcuts, ways around doing a fly so that it is quicker and easier. And in this case, this works because without my babbling here and trying to explain this to you and talk about this, it takes me less than 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes to tie this fly. Matter of fact, one year I was up there and the guys were in need of some. It was later on in the year, and every night after we would get off the water, I would sit down at night with some of this stuff and tie up some nuke eggs for them. And I think by the time 3 or 4 nights had gone by, I had actually tied up well over 100. I mean, I had a whole box full for them. And here's another little tip for you. It's the only thing about the GSP, it tends to slip a lot. If you don't want to take the time to do head cement, especially on a lot of these quick flies that you might lose, then do a double whip finish. So there's one right there. You could even put in a few half hitch knots and a whip finish on top if you want. There's another. And now I don't have to mess with taking the time to put some head cement on there. All I have to do here is brush out the veil right here. Pull some of it out apparently. But just brush that out. Get that distributed a little bit. And then I'll trim that a little bit short if I want to. There you go. Like I said, I can tie these up in no time at all. And, you know, you've got, in a couple of hours, you've got a couple, 2-3 dozen of these. So that's a quick and simple nuke egg. This is more of a guide's nuke egg. Go take a look out on the internet, look at some other videos for veiled eggs as well as nuke eggs, and you'll see all kinds of different ways that people tie these. Find one that you like if you're going to be doing any steelhead, salmon fishing, even trout. During salmon season up in Michigan, many of the people will be bouncing these through for salmon, and it ends up drifting back behind the fish, and there's some nice trout behind that will pick these up. So these are great for even trying to pick up some trout. So that is another basic egg, a nuke egg or veiled egg. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vice today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch. Or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. And what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.